station here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. I am here with two of my friends, Will Louie, right over there, and Patrick, right down here. And today we are going to introduce you. If you don't know Patrick already, you're going to get a chance to get to know him. And he is going to be our teacher at our conference this summer for the program XCS. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time getting to know him. And he's going to share a bunch of tips. If you're a user for XCS, you're going to love this. And so you get a chance to kind of see his style, and you're going to get a chance to learn some things, take some notes, and just get a little bit of a brief intro to what he's going to be teaching at the conference. This is going to be a lot of fun. So before we get started, before we get into the content, I want to just introduce you to Patrick and have him tell all of us a little bit about himself, maybe how he got started with lasers, and then we will jump right into some content. So Patrick, would you just say good morning to everybody and let people know how you got started with lasers, what your journeys looked like?
Sure. Well, good morning, everybody. Like Mark said, my name is Patrick. I live just south of Nashville, Tennessee, and I got started with lasers really a couple years ago. 2021, I got into woodworking and was kind of looking at some of the automation that you can do with that, with CNCs and lasers and things of that nature. And the first machine that I got that would be akin to a laser was a smaller CNC, a 3018. It was 30 centimeters by 18 centimeters, and it was the smallest thing ever, but it worked. And I upgraded from that to a bigger Shapeoko, and I used that on the woodworking side of things for a while. And eventually I was like, I want to add a laser to this. So I bought a small little 5-watt diode laser. I retrofitted it to the CNC gantry, wired it into the main board of it, and I started doing stuff with that and quickly realized 5-watt was nowhere near enough. So from there, I went to a 10-watt diode. I had a couple 10-watt diodes, upgraded from that to a K40 and a 40-watt diode. And from there, I've got close to 10 lasers in the shop right now, from 80-watt CO2s, 30-watt MOPA fibers, the F1 Ultra, the F1, the xTool S1. So quite a few things, and really it all came about just from wanting to play with it. I've done content creation for over a decade, and I do a lot of content creation with the lasers, and that also kind of helped jumpstart it working with companies and things like that. But I love the customizability that you get with using a laser. You can make almost anything out of almost anything, and it's really fun.
That's cool. So it's like children. I don't know if you want to pick a favorite. Is there one of your lasers or a couple of them that you use more than others, perhaps?
My 80-watt CO2, which has a 24 by 36 bed, and the F1 Ultra.
Nice.
If I could only have two lasers in the shop, it would be those two. The 30-watt MOPA laser would be a close second or close third, but those two are the mains.
Watch your mouth. You are not limited. You can have as many as you want.
You can.
Right, Will?
No, that's ridiculous. But I'm going to let you guys chat for a second. We're having a problem connecting to some of the Facebook. Let me make sure I get that squared away. Okay. So just let me mute myself real quick.
Sounds good. So Patrick and everybody else, this is going to be a fun live for sure. If Will has to deal with technical things, that'll be fun. And also, everybody gets deliveries at their house all the time, right? we're all kind of addicted probably to Amazon deliveries. As much as maybe I've heard people do this. I check my front porch, even though I don't think I've ordered anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've missed FedEx 2 days in a row. And if I don't catch it today, they're going to send the item back. And it's something for the conference we really need. So if the doorbell rings, Mark's going to disappear for a second and come back. Because I have to sign for it. So it's that kind of thing. But so that's awesome, man. As we all know, This is a really fun hobby. It's also really great for business. It's good for either purpose. And what was your first xTool laser? When did you get that?
My first xTool laser was the D1 Pro. And let me see when I got that, because I did a review on that one.
Yeah.
That was probably late 2022. Early 2023 is when I got the D1 Pro, and that was my first. It was a 40 watt. It was the 10 watt, 40 watt kit.
That's great. And so, of course, obviously you jumped into using XCS right away. I don't know how you can answer this exactly, but from even my short experience, XCS has grown quite a bit over the last 2 years, hasn't it?
Absolutely. When I first started XCS, I started out trying to use it because it was the software for the laser, and honestly, I quickly reverted back to Lightburn because Lightburn was just more feature filled at that time for what I was doing. But over time, XCS has become extremely mature. It's adopted just about, if not every feature that Lightburn has for a vast majority of things. And the fact that it has now like native cloud syncing of your settings and things like that, it has become a very, very well featured program.
That's great. I'm excited to get into this. Patrick and I talked over the last couple of days about some tips that he could share with XCS users that maybe they don't know about. So we've got 4 on our list here, and we'll see how we do getting through them here in a couple minutes. Patrick's going to share his screen and just talk us through some tips, which would be really great. Will, you've got let me see, you've got 2 xTools, is that right? Do you have the?
No, I have 3 xTools here at the shop. I have the F1, the F1 Ultra, and the P2.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And so your experience with XCS, Will, has probably been the same as mine. Is it's continued to grow quite quickly, and I really love each time they add new functions for sure.
Yeah, the features from when we started to where it is now has made it very user friendly. We could, like you said, we're all using Lightburn for our other lasers, so we're familiar with it. And I could easily say, hey, I can just transfer Lightburn onto there and use it. But I find it one of the easier programs to use with XCS. And a lot of people's fears too, when they come from, say, no lasers to getting their first laser, is how user-friendly is the software. And Glowforge, when I first got my Glowforge, made it very easy to go from novice to printing something. And I think XCS has done that as well, where they've made it very easy for someone with zero knowledge starting on the bottom floor to get to a point of creating amazing projects quickly.
I agree.
And then they've evolved where they've allowed the more experienced users to get the features that we all keep clamoring for. They're very receptive to hearing the feedback from actual users and implementing that into XCS. So it's definitely seen a massive growth, especially with the amount of xTools out there, the amount of people who are now using it. They've made it very, very user friendly for a lot of us.
In fact, I'll take this moment real quick since we're talking about the conference coming up. xTool is one of our corporate sponsors, so we're really thankful to them, and we're really excited to have them at the conference. They're going to have a lot of things there that maybe even, who knows, some things you haven't seen before. So it's going to be really cool to be able to check those out in person, be able to talk to the staff and to see things running if you haven't seen them before. So it's going to be very cool. Patrick, I'm going to need you to leave your wallet at home.
That's fine. I'll borrow Will's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. No. Dibs. No.
There is nothing more embarrassing than going to Starbucks like I did this morning. Starbucks card not charging, and went to just use my card and it says decline, and I'm like, oh man, that's $5, and I don't know if it was something with my bank, but standing there in front of the barista, oh, I'm sorry, sir, your card declined for $5. Very, very humbling. So I don't know what xTool plans to come out with. Under $5, you're good. If it's above $5, you're playing roulette. So good luck with that.
That's right. I want to say a quick good morning to Hannah B. I see you in the chat there, and Gina, good to see you as well. Glad you're here. I see there's plenty of other people here. Feel free to say hi in the chat and get your XCS questions ready. We'll try to get them to Patrick as much as we can during this. Patrick, before we get into your list, I do want to make sure that people know how to find you and know how to get a hold of you. So Will has got a graphic or two he can throw up here on the screen. But one of the ways they can get a hold of you is to go to your website here, createdworkshop.com. So if anybody out there wants to get to know more about Patrick, what he's doing, or get in touch with him, you can hit him up there. So that's a good place.
And we also have your Facebook group, which you said is probably one of the easiest places to see all of your content, share ideas, a part of a community. So that'll be
Yeah.
great too. I'll post the link to your Facebook group in the comments, so it's a clickable link, so you guys don't
Okay.
have to actually write
Perfect.
this down.
That's great.
And you can also find me on socials at Created Workshop on all the major social platforms.
Excellent. That's great. Real quick, hello to Lisa Lee. Man, everybody's saying hi now. Lisa, Janet, Christine, Heather, good to see all of you here. Thank you for joining us. So before we jump into your tips, I'm going to give you a chance to maybe come up with a few other ones. When you, Patrick, when you talk to first-time xTool owners,
Mm-hmm.
is there any just common things that they struggle with right away that you could mention that we could maybe help them out before we get into your other tips? Do you see like a commonality when they're struggling with something when they first start?
The biggest thing is settings, truthfully. And I think we all struggle with that. But settings, the best thing to know is settings are not universal. The settings that work for Will, the settings that work for Mark, the settings that work for me might not be the exact settings that work for you. That's why I'm glad that xTool has updated XCS to have the grid generator in there. And we'll talk a little bit about that definitely in the course and stuff. And but finding your own settings, don't just go to Reddit or Facebook and find somebody's settings and then they don't work and say my machine's broken. I've gone to use my machine, especially in the winter. The F1 Ultra is supposed to have a pre-warm-up cycle. xTool's told me I've never had it work well. So I just try to keep the shop warmer, but I've gone out there to try to use it and the fiber just wasn't working. And it wasn't that my settings were off. It was the settings that I knew worked, but because my environment was different, then my settings were not working right. So, find your settings, but don't be frustrated if settings don't work.
That's great. And I think probably a thing that I would mention that as far as someone who's been teaching people lasers for several years as well, I want people to understand the concept of speed and power.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know when you're brand new, they seem like mysterious numbers that don't seem to relate to anything. And of course they do, but you just got to get used to it at first. So I think it really helps when you start with some of the presets in XCS, but then you have to tweak them and you understand, hey, I understand that if I need to cut deeper, then I need to go slower or I need to raise my power or both.
Yep.
And once you understand the relationship between speed and power, then all of a sudden the presets don't become mysterious at all. You actually understand them. I have a question about that. I'm wondering about both of you guys. Since you've been using lasers for a while, both of you, do you use presets? Do you make your own presets? Do you just go in there and type numbers? Do you use presets now that you've been doing this for a while?
Yeah.
No
question.
Yeah.
I've got in my Asana, I've got a little spreadsheet because I've been doing that since before XCS had their cloud syncing, where I've typed out my settings. But in Lightburn, I've got settings files for just about every material, and I've memorized my most frequently used ones. Even for XCS, I've memorized my most frequently used ones. But I definitely have settings that I go to and presets that I'll use depending on what I'm doing. Just it's easier.
I found that whether it's Glowforge or whether it's XCS or some other, like We Create, I use that one as well. Understandably, they put in presets for, like, let's say 3mm walnut, 3mm maple, 3mm cherry, 3mm whatever, and they're actually all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's for beginners, and I get it because I was a beginner at 1.2. But once I realized, oh, those are all exactly the same, I don't. And then if I get another 3mm MDF core plywood, I don't need to look for that specific name. I can actually just use maple every time or whatever. And I think that's another thing that's important to learn is it doesn't matter if your specific type is there as long as it's a similar type of wood or material, right? Or if it's acrylic and you're looking for purple, but all they have is blue, well, it's going to be fine. We're not talking about diodes for a second here, but I'm just talking about in general, right?
Yeah. I hear that a lot from people who first start out with lasers is, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming. There's 25 different wood species. There's 20 different acrylic colors. And you'll start to see that they're very similar in the settings, right? They're close. Now, there are some tweaks. And also when I look at presets, I use presets to start as a baseline. But the key thing that Patrick was saying that I think we should all understand is each laser is going to react differently based on the age of your laser, the cleanliness of your laser, the environment your laser is in. So if you go into the groups or if you use a preset, know that there's still tweaking that you can do with that to optimize your results. Because it's funny is I'll use a preset and it works, but I could actually, or I would find something from the groups and I say, oh, that setting cut through my material, but it had too much char, or can I go faster? And I'm always trying to push the limit to how fast I can actually cut something or engrave something and still get a desired result. Because for me, time is money. And the quicker that I can speed up my process, the more projects I can get done. So yeah, definitely use the tools that are given to you. Hey, projectors for your class, Patrick.
Yeah, perfect.
Testing right now. We're testing higher lumen short throw projectors to try to create the screens and the visuals where people can see it the best available. So
there's nothing like buying 28 projectors. Not that we're counting, but yeah,
just a few classes with two screens each, and we want everyone to be able to have a good view of what's going on, because we've been to events where it's 200 people in a room and it's one screen, and trying to follow someone's mouse, especially for something as a design program like XCS, like Patrick is teaching at the conference, it's very hard to follow along. So we're trying to create an environment where you guys can actually get as much out of it as possible, but they will all be recorded and given to all attendees. So,
and since I'm definitely the oldest person here, I will make the old joke, but man, as you get older, like I'm always telling my kids to turn the brightness up on their screen because I can't see it. And that's the same with the TV or a projector or anything. Honestly, as you get older, your eyes require more light. So we're trying to take care of the senior citizens like me to make sure these projectors are nice and bright. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was excited to finally get the box here and not miss the driver. So great. Well, do you want
a couple other people who jumped on? Blake says, "What's up, gentlemen?" But he did preface that by saying, "I use that term loosely," so he must be mostly speaking to me. Catherine Ewers is here, who's another teacher at the conference. Yes. Sherry's here. Good morning.
Good to see you, Sherry.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to jump into some of the tips and tricks that you have for us? And I'm going to start still keeping questions that we can answer as we go later on.
Sure. So Patrick, I'll let you start getting this one ready. I'll introduce it and let you talk about it some more. Patrick has pulled together a list of 4 different things that he knows that new users don't always discover right away, or they don't discover the power of them. And so he's going to share some today, and he's going to share his screen here in just a minute. The first one I think we're going to talk about is smart processing. Is that right? You want to do that one first?
Yep.
I will tell you that a couple of days ago when Patrick and I were talking, I had heard of it, but I really didn't know. In fact, I definitely did not know what it did. And when he showed me I assume that's what you're going to do this morning too, is show us the speed. I was really surprised. So first thing is, let us know in the chat. Do you know what smart processing is? I'd love to see who knows about that, because I did not. But I will let you, Patrick. Let us know when you have your screen ready, and we will share that. And you can talk to us about what smart processing is.
Perfect. Yeah, I am ready to go.
Go for it, Will.
All right. I hope there's not a prerequisite when it comes to my IQ for smart processing, because I'll stick with mediocre processing, I guess. Let me throw this on stage for you. Let me make sure we have it set up for. Oh, we lined up perfectly.
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so with smart processing, it kind of changes how the laser itself functions. So we're going to design this as if it was going to be a necklace. So go 4 millimeters tall. That's typically what I do for necklaces. And if we were to set up and do this on, let's say, a F1. On an F1, you'd run at 100% power and about 5 millimeters a second and 300 lines per centimeter. And so if you were doing that and we were doing a standard engrave, we go to not frame it, but we go to process it. And we look, it's going to take about 2.5 minutes, and we're very used to seeing it scan across like this, right? I mean, this is how almost all lasers work. This is how we see the gantry lasers work. It's the standard processing method. So that's 2.5 minutes. That's not bad for a necklace. But if we click the 3 dots down here next to process, change it from auto to use, or from auto to user, and then toggle on smart. You don't see any changes here in the UI, but when we go back to process, that 2 minutes 37 seconds has now dropped to 31 seconds.
Wow.
And what it does is, instead of scanning all the way across, it draws it. So you have a lot less just movement. It's not having to scroll all the way across everything. And so this right here can literally save you hours when you're doing your different things. Because if you're trying to do, a bunch of different graphics, you're doing a bunch of different necklaces, you're doing any of that type of stuff. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If you're doing a bunch of stuff, then you're going to save a lot of time. I mean, that alone saved 2 minutes. Now, if you go across 10 necklaces, you're saving 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And that adds up. You do 30 necklaces in a day, you've saved an hour's worth of time. You're now finishing your day doing 30 necklaces. If you were doing that and that was all you were doing, an hour earlier than you typically would have.
That's great.
And so that changes a lot. Now, smart processing is not always the best thing to use. In wood specifically, it is not the best because it will... Let me see if I can get this to resize there. Okay. Because with wood, with how it's jumping around, you're going to have some issues where it's heating up a section. So you can see how it starts with this M, but then it kind of moves. And it's not finishing everything like where that L and that R is. It comes back to that. The wood's going to expand, and when it heats, and then it's going to contract, and it's going to just have thermal expansion. And so when it comes back, you might have lines left in it if you're doing this in wood. But when it comes to metals, I've never really had an issue with this unless you were doing a super, super, super thin metal.
Okay.
But it's very useful.
Is this only useful on the F1, F1 Ultra, or is it also useful on others as well?
Primarily F1, F1 Ultra. When you go to using a gantry style laser like the S1 or the P2, unless you're doing like a big circle, this is going to potentially add more time. It never hurts to simulate it. Simulating, it's going to tell you how long it's going to take and all that. But if you were doing something smaller, it actually takes the laser longer to accelerate and decelerate, to start and stop for all of the little pieces, than it does to just have it scan all the way across. Now, if you were doing like a 20-inch circle that was half-inch wide because it was an outline for something, you'd save a lot of time using this smart fill on that big circle instead of scanning across the whole circle. But as the average, it's probably just best to stick to using this on the Galvo style lasers.
That's great. I know there's one question that lots of people have, and it doesn't even matter if they have an xTool on this one, but I'll ask you this one because I know this will be hugely helpful. If you're engraving, not necessarily jewelry, but it could be anything. If you're engraving a whole bunch of the same thing and you have it all up there on the screen, how do you tell XCS to do this one and then this one and this one as opposed to this?
So do it by groups. Okay. That would be changing the scanning path for engraving, I believe, would fix, or by layer right here. So doing it by layer. And so your layers in XCS, let's just go ahead and we're going to grid this out a little bit. So we have a handful more of these, and we'll make it a little bit more spaced. So with layers, we will ungroup this. Your layers are accessed down here. You can right click and then you can see all your different layers down here. So with all of them like this, even if we're chosen by layer, and we'll go back away from smart processing, like if you were using an S1 or anything like that, this is going to kind of jump around let's see. I've not actually done a whole lot of that. So let's do a little bit of let's change that to all together. And now we're scanning all the way across. This is also, let's see what it does when you're not in auto or when you're not in manual. So in auto, what's it going to default to? In auto, it's going to default to that. So a lot of that's going to just be changing from auto planning to user defining.
Okay.
So you can change from 1 by 1 to all together. You can change to by layer. So by doing it by layer, if we move that to the red layer, and those are all set like that, and we go here, now it's going to do that other layer first and then go back and do the rest of them.
I got you. Okay. That's really good. I know that wasn't one of the tips you had in mind, but that comes up all the time. And I realize the way that you approach that will be different, perhaps if you're using Lightburn or if you're using something else. But this is really good for XCS because occasionally you do want it to do one and then go to the next one, not have to scan all the way across.
And you can hit this button down here and open up your layers panel and reorganize your layers. So if you wanted red to run last, you would just drop it below that. And now if we come back into here, that will do the outsides first because those were the blue, and then come back and do that middle.
That's great. That's great. Awesome.
So using smart processing versus just the standard when it comes to jewelry, because that's usually the biggest time saver for a lot of people, where if they're taking the F1 on the go in a sense, and they're engraving on site, a lot of the complaints is it takes too long for them to actually keep up with the amount of orders. Have you noticed, or as far as durability and quality of the engraving and the marking, have you seen a significant difference between smart processing and running it regularly?
I've personally seen no difference between the two. The only difference that you might see occasionally is you might be able to make out some lines, but that's been a very rare occurrence for me. And typically only if I'm using like the F1 Ultra and I'm doing a deeper engrave will I be able to notice that. But if you're annealing on the F1 Ultra, or if you're just doing any type of metal marking on the F1, because the F1 only anneals because of how it's running, you're not really going to notice that at all.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So time saver there, guys. That in itself is one of the biggest tips that I think people will use, because the F1 is such geared to the ones who want to engrave on site, and be able to speed up the process will save a lot of time and money for people. So thank you.
Yep. That's great. So the next tip you have is outline framing. I'll let you get that ready before we put it back up again. Is this also, is this only for the F1, F1 Ultra again, or is it for others?
Well, the others will do it to an extent, but it's primarily F1, F1 Ultra. So, okay, we're ready to go on this one. There's not really a whole lot to show outside of how to access it, and then I'll explain it some. Yep. But with your traditional framing, when you're doing just a rectangle frame, it's drawing a rectangle around the outside of what you're going to engrave. And that's fine for most things, but you know, if we were to take and warp this like this, now that rectangle, you can see it here, is kind of big. That's not representative of what we're actually engraving, especially if you're trying to do this on a circular necklace. So
could
instead,
you, just for this too, could you zoom in quite a bit because it's really small?
Yep.
That'll help a lot. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so like you can see the green outline here. That would be, it might be a little bit tighter, but that would be what your outline would be when you're going to engrave. If you're trying to engrave on a circle, that's not going to help you, that rectangle. So when you go into framing, hit the 3 dots to the right of framing and change it to outline, it will actually draw an outline around each element that it's going to be engraving. And it'll do it pretty fast, almost to the point where you're seeing the entire word or shape or whatever that it's going to engrave instead of just a rectangle. And I use this all the time. People ask me, going back to kind of your first question that you asked, what's one of the biggest things that people ask? And it's framing and lining up things, alignment. I don't use the camera on my Ultra. I tried it for the first time the other day. I think it was the first time, maybe the second time I've used it since I got it summer of last year. I never use the camera. And that's because I use outline framing exclusively when I'm lining stuff up, because I can see the actual graphic actually be projected onto the actual piece. And that helps drastically with anything. It helps with lining up. If I'm doing a circle, so if we come up here and we draw a circle, and if we just straighten this back out, and I wanted to put this in the middle of the circle, so we align center, and we shrink up the circle, and we just realign those real quick. If I want the easiest way to get this dead center, I'll take my circle, I'll set it to score at 1% power, maximum speed, and now I will still do outline framing. What this will do is it won't outline the word, but it will draw the circle. So now I can take whatever I'm going to be engraving, whether it's a coaster, whether it's a circle necklace, or anything, and you can do this with any shape, and it's projecting that exact shape down. So I can move it around. The framing laser is nowhere near powerful enough to harm you. My fingers cross it all the time. So I just move it around underneath that perfect shape, and that gets it aligned dead center every time.
I just want to check. You got all 10?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've never had any problems with putting the fingers under the actual laser either.
So, hey, question. I'm curious. With your framing, specifically the F1 Ultra, but any other laser as well that has that same feature. I'm curious from both of you guys. When you are framing something, do you turn on the framing and then do you move your graphic to hit the thing, or do you move the thing to get in the frame?
It depends.
Okay.
Depends on how big the object is.
Yeah.
If it's a big cutting board, I move the item on the grid, so I'll take and drag this around.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing a necklace, I'll typically group whatever I'm doing and then just align it to center.
Yeah.
And have that frame, and then I'll move the object on the grid.
Yeah.
It depends too. If I'm doing a repeatable project and I'm setting up one of my either a jig or the L bracket, you're not able to move that to every single spot. So if I move it to one spot, I'll put my bracelet or pendant into there, and then I'll move the graphic to go over to that. Then I know it's always going to be in the same spot. So like Patrick said, it varies depending on exactly what you're doing.
That's really great. Hey, good morning, Annette. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Even though you had to come in late, that's always no problem. Let us know if you have any questions, Annette, or anybody else. We'll keep going through these tips, but we'd love to answer any questions you have. And if you're watching this on demand later, feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll get notified, and we'll answer it. And if we don't know, we'll get Patrick. We'll tug on Superman's cape and have him tell us the answers. And if you
guys would do us a favor too, if you are watching this on replay, just hashtag replay it for us, so we can actually see how many people we reach outside of coming live. We know it's not always the most convenient time, so also we are able to see when you start watching it. It gives us a better idea of when we might do other lives to just really see where we are. So
that's great.
Hashtag replay.
Right. So the third tip that you have kind of lined up for us is cloud save for projects. Go ahead and get that ready and let us know when you're ready for that, and kind of tell us what it's about, why we would care, and then you can show us how to use it.
Perfect. Okay. I'm all ready for that.
All right, let's do it. Tell us what cloud save for projects is.
So with XCS, when you're logged into your account, so you can see up here, I'm logged in, you have your MySpace. And this is not MySpace from years ago.
No, I want to be in the top 5, please.
But you can see when I click on MySpace here, I've got various different files. Now these files, if we go back over to my active project and you hit save, so I hit Control S on my keyboard, Command S on Mac, there's 2 options here. You can save it locally, or you can upload it to MySpace. And when you upload it to MySpace, then that now gives you these projects on any computer. So I know a lot of people have like a singular computer that they use for their XCS. I'm probably an outlier. Like I said at the beginning, I've done content creation for over a decade. I'm a PC gamer. I'm a videographer. I'm a photographer. I've got a lot of computers. So I've got a computer that stays in my office. I have a computer that stays in the shop for the lasers. And then I've got my laptop that goes with me. So when I'm doing different things, I will design on one computer and execute that on another computer.
Yes.
So with uploading it, you could design it at home, maybe. Maybe you have your laser at work, or maybe it's in a shop that's detached from your house. You could design it in one place. So we can design this right here. So let's say this is going on a circle pendant, and we hit upload to MySpace, circle pendant, and we hit save. Now it's uploaded. It tells us that. We can come back over here, and here it is now. So if I was to go to another computer, I could just be logged into my XCS account. I can go to MySpace, and we will close that out. I can now just click this, and it will open it. Now, this saves everything. This doesn't just save the graphic itself. This saves your settings. This saves everything. The only thing it doesn't save is your processing settings. So like if I was to close out of XCS and go back into it, I would have to still go back and change it to smart processing. But as far as your like engrave, score, cut settings, all of those are saved. We can go to this. This was a ornament that I was doing, and I designed this at home. And so I had my engrave set up. And then the reason this was set as a score is because that was for me to align a pre-cut ornament on it. But all of my settings are here. And so I could just hit frame, line it up, hit process, and engrave, and I didn't have to worry about anything.
I love it. That's great. So for those of us who come from the Glowforge world, I've got several questions about this. One,
Okay.
Is this a paid feature?
This is not.
Okay. Two, do you have any idea how much I can save there and how long it stays?
So right now they're showing a limited offer of 500 megabytes for your total storage. I do believe that they will in the future, if they're not already doing it, allow you to purchase additional storage. But they're doing this by storage. They used to do it by project, and that really annoyed me because they only allowed like 5 or 10 projects, and that's just not a lot. Yeah. But you can see that the average file size here is
small,
250K,
yeah,
25K. And so out of these 6 projects, and some of them like this knife one has more going on. Like we've got a bunch of stuff on here. This is for an F1. We've got multiple layers going on. So we've got a lot going on there. And that is only taking up 1.5 meg. And you've got 500 megabytes. So you could store, of this size, hundreds of files.
That's great. I love it. And I know for me, I also use several different devices. One other thing that I've done for years, long before XCS, was occasionally when I'm traveling somewhere or when I'm just out, my brain never turns off. So I'm always working on something, and I will design something. And in this case, I haven't done this because this is recent for XCS, but I would save something and then have my wife, I'd call her and say, hey, would you throw a piece of wood in the Glowforge and run this for me and see how it goes? And so I'm in Florida or something, and she doesn't have to do anything but just, in this case, click it and run it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another potential application. There's lots of them, but that's another one.
Another way that this can be useful is, and I've done this at events, I've had my iPad there with me, and you can run, most xTool devices off of an iPad. I still choose to run them off of my laptop. I just find it easier. But I would use XCS and hand it to a child with my Apple Pencil on my iPad, and they would write, I love you, Mom, on the iPad. I would save that to the MySpace area of XCS and then import that into XCS on the laptop. And now I'm taking a child's handwriting for their parents and engraving it on the spot. You do have to have internet for all of that to work unless you're using the iPad to run the device. But I run a hotspot to do my POS anyway. And so that is, that's exactly how that goes. And it works phenomenally to just transfer everything from the iPad to the laptop, from the laptop to the iPad if you're designing at home and you're running off of an iPad. One last thing about the cloud save is it now does also sync your materials. So if you come in here And, this setting right here, I would use for an F1 metal. So I could save it as F1 metal. And now that will be synced to the cloud. You can sync it to the cloud. So I can select all of these and I can hit batch sync to cloud. There it is. And so now those settings themselves are synced to the cloud. So when I go to my other computer, all of my settings files, not even just in a project file, if I just create a new file, all of my settings are available.
That's so good.
Yes. Lightbird needs to figure that one out. Props to XCS for enabling that.
Man, it's fantastic. I love it. That's so good, man.
Yes.
I see a question that Hannah asked. It's a broad one. I think we'll come to that one. I'll tell you what it is. She asked, "What is your favorite function of XCS?" But hold that thought. Let's touch on the trace feature. Now, I dropped this on you yesterday or the day before, but I know that. Let me kind of set this up. I'll take this off the screen. Let you get ready if you want to.
Okay.
But I know a lot of people have customers that send them logos. And I use that term very loosely. Pretty bad files at times. And then you'll want to be able to clean that up and to be able to put it on different things, whether it be a cutting board, whether it be a tumbler, whether it be a piece of jewelry, a hat, a patch, whatever. And so more and more, we're having to clean up things or trace things for a variety of reasons. And I actually don't remember when XCS added the trace function, but it's there now. And I messed with it just a little bit the other day, and I found that it was pretty good. And previous to this, a lot of people have been doing what I was doing, where I would use another tool, whether it's Lightburn, whether it's Illustrator, whether it's an online tracing thing, whatever, Inkscape, and then saving it and then bringing it into XCS. Now that they have this, that might allow you to skip one or all of those, perhaps, depending on the quality of the file that you get to begin with. Patrick, if you have something that we could test real quick, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Yeah. You ready to go?
Yep. All ready.
All right. So talk to us about the tracing.
So I'm gonna start with doing it with the QR code because it's the easiest one to do it with. And if you're watching and you want to scan it, go ahead. It'll take you to the next level website so you can book your tickets. But this is a PNG, so you can tell that there's a white background here, and this would engrave decently, but it would not be ideal. So with the picture selected, we can hit the trace button up here, and it'll give us a preview of what this trace will look like. And you can change some settings here. In a little bit that I've played with tracing in XCS, I've kind of just stuck with what it believes it needs for auto tracing. It works well. Hitting save then converts this. So now we're lined. So we can do with this whatever we want. And that whatever we want includes flipping to engrave. And now I've already tested it before. If you were to scan this, it brings you right to the website. The great thing with QR codes is they're actually built with like 20 or 30% redundancy into them. So you could destroy half the code or quarter of the code and it'll still work.
Wow.
But it might not be as crisp as this is, and you can dial that in. We could go back into trace and we can change the fuzziness down some.
And if I could point out something real quick, because when I first saw this, I didn't realize what was happening. And on the screen, depending on what people are watching this on, they may not see it. There is kind of a light, kind of aqua blue green that is outlining things there. And it's a little bit hard to see. As you get closer, you can kind of see it. Yeah. And you can see that that's what it's going to be tracing, right?
Yes.
When I first did it, I kind of wish they would make that either a brighter color or thicker lines or I don't know, something, because it wasn't immediately obvious to me that that's what was happening. So I just want to tell beginners that's what you're looking for.
Makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. Look at that. There's more options when you're tracing in Lightburn than there are in here, but XCS is evolving. As we were talking about at the beginning, there's always changes happening on XCS to things behind the scenes, and you can kind of see how it's changing different things as I'm changing the fuzziness, the denoise.
Yeah.
And we center the tracing. Don't do that. That's an interesting outcome. But it works well there. And then if we wanted to bring in one more graphic, and we'll see how well this does, we'll scale it. Next level logo. Now this has a lot going on, and I'm gonna say from the start, this is not going to trace amazingly.
No.
But if we go ahead and open up trace and we let it kind of see what it's doing, and we'll change fuzziness down, see if we can get that to pull a little bit more from the logo side. Yeah, it's
and I'll say a couple of the challenges with because for me, when somebody sends me a file like that, the first couple things I notice are gradients,
and that's what it's fighting with.
And then a photo, there's a photo in there of the hotel there. Yep. So this is kind of a good example of just a side note. When a customer sends you stuff like this, you may be able to get something useful, but probably not. Depending on what you want out of it. Let me rephrase that. To make it a vector is what I should say.
Yes. Yeah. Because you can always just engrave this as a photo, but if we just go ahead, we'll just trace it as is right here and zoom out some, pull this across. Oh, it actually did get the whole next level there. So if we will ungroup that and we will release that.
It did better than I expected.
It did a lot better than I expected.
Yeah. So what he's doing, just let me talk through what he's doing is he's selecting essentially the redundant lower parts of the gradient in the words so he can delete those. And I know there's another way to do this, but this also could get you an outline of it. Like it's giving you the outline. If you wanted to engrave it and cut it, you could do that another way, but that's another thing that happened here.
And actually, speaking of that, I will show that here in a second because that's very useful.
Yes.
Let's see. So I'm going to throw this black to that red. And what I'm doing there is I'm changing the layers because I want to delete all of that stuff there so I could hide that other layer.
Yeah.
So now we're just going to make all of this. We're going to make all of it the black layer. What happens when we go to engrave that? Well, I need to make it a compound as well.
Oh, it's actually pretty interesting. I know that wasn't the goal here, but some of that's pretty interesting.
And is there? Let's see. So if we, we're gonna move that to this. So if you wanted to do this as a badge, let's say, and we will hide red so that way I can make that a compound again. That fixes a lot of things. So let's say we wanted to engrave this as is, draw it just like that. We would set the red as a cut layer, but then you also want to cut as a score layer, and then you also want to cut it out. You can come up here to offset to create another shape, and now we can select this and move this to, say, the orange layer. And so now we would be engraving the black, scoring the red, and then cutting the orange. And the way you would set that up would be to put the layers like this, where we engrave the black, score the red, cut the orange. And so that just allowed me to offset. You do that with the offset tool up here, this to do it. And same, you could even do that with the, why did it make that part of that?
It's grouped, but yeah.
We'll release that, grab this. But now we could, let's see, take this. Where's my tools at? Okay, because that's a compound vector.
Oh, yep.
Why are you release compound vector? There we go. Okay, now we will make that a compound vector again. Okay, so now I can offset this, and if we do sharp corners and outer shapes only, you can see it's kind of somewhat smoothing out as we go. This really is good with names, and we don't have any more names on here.
It is.
So
if you wanted to do it, cut out a name and engrave the inner part of it, a keychain, a bag tag, something of that sort.
So we take this name here, we convert that name to an engrave, and then we offset that name.
If you could zoom in a little bit, that would be helpful on on that.
Okay.
Yep.
So we will undo that offset and we'll go back into that offset, and you can see what it's doing there.
Yeah.
And now this name, you could engrave it and then cut it out, and there'd be no pieces, because the M doesn't touch the A and the R doesn't touch the L. So if you were to just cut this out by itself, you'd have 3 separate pieces.
Yeah.
But now this is all kind of grouped into that one piece. You've got a cut piece, you've got an engraved piece, and you could just add a small circle that's also offset off the top, and now you've got a bag tag.
It's perfect. You could also do a big wall sign by cutting all this with a 2-layer. There's so many different things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I appreciate about XCS is that I feel like, well, I know that since they're making this directly for a laser, they tend to know what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so like something with Illustrator, for example, it's by no means made for specifically lasers. It's just made for all kinds of things. And so sometimes there's features that are under features that are inside features that are next to features.
Yep.
And I love it, but this one kind of cuts to the chase and goes, hey, I bet you want to do this. Here you go. And I like that. Are there limitations? Sure. But I like how quickly it gets somewhere. I see what, you're going to add a ring there.
Yep. And so this actually covers a little bit of a slightly more advanced topic, but if we select both of those and we come up here, we just joined that. And so now you're ready to cut that as a keychain.
Love it. That's really great.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the common questions we get with a lot of design things is how do I create an outline on an object if I want to I can engrave this, but I want to cut out the shape. That's a great tool for a lot of people. And like you said, you can do so much with that. Ornaments, you can create all the things that you want to create. That's a huge and very simple to use, not create it. Just creating a simple offset makes it so much easier than some of the other programs where there's multiple steps involved to create that. So
yeah, for sure.
Let me clarify something with you, Patrick. We can use the conference logo because I think you still have it down there somewhere. The original one, the raster. Yeah. So when you have something like that that's not a vector, can you add an outline to it as a raster? Like a cut line?
Yes.
Okay.
I've never tried that, and it's working actually quite well. You can see it generating that blue line right there.
Yeah. So I wanted people to see this. So it's not outlining the white square behind it. Which is
what I was expecting it to do, honestly.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Now it's and you can offset it as far as you wish. So if you were going to cut this out and engrave it, which I realize it's not ideal to engrave as it sits, but that's not the point, right?
Yeah.
So you can do an outline around this thing quite quickly.
And now you've got a quick 2-step system that's going to engrave that.
Yeah.
And then cut it.
That's great. Love it.
That did not work how I was expecting it to. It worked how I hoped it would, but not how I expected.
So that can be a really quick time saver, for sure.
Definitely.
Well, this is great. Lisa said she's got a lot of useful information from this, so I'm really glad to hear that for sure. Christine earlier said, "No way, that's awesome," which of course we always love to hear that for sure as well. And we've got a few people that are be jumping on later because they're going to catch the replay later, so that's going to be excellent. So this is great. So why don't we're near the end of our hour. Why don't we remind people how to get in touch with Patrick again? And we'll put that on the screen. And how to find him. So createdworkshop.com is his website. And you can also join his group there. So facebook.com/groups Laser Creators Workshop. And that's also in the chat. I think, Will, if you could drop those back in again, kind of late down in the chat again, that would be really great. But that's a couple different ways to get in touch with Patrick. And he's, as you can tell, he's a great teacher, easy to listen to, patient, which I appreciate a lot. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy learning from him. He's got an 1.5-hour class that he's going to be teaching at the conference. And of course, as we all know, you could go for several hours and learn a ton, which would be awesome. But we'll do our best to have him on again between now and the conference. But this is something else to look forward to. So we've got, I believe, 25 different classes that you guys can choose from at the conference. And if you're a ticket holder, don't worry about attending all of them. Just attend the ones that you want, that you can. And then you'll get videos of all the classes to watch later on. So you can review and back up. And when Patrick says crazy things, you'll have it permanently. It'll be great. But that'll be great. We have a question here. Kurt said, he jumped in a few minutes late. Is this the driver software for the F1 lasers? Yes. XCS is the software for all XCS lasers at this point, right? I believe is there a different version for the brand new metal cutting, Will? I think there is, or either one of you.
No, it'll be part of standard XCS.
Okay. So yes, they are keeping that software as the thing that works for all the lasers, which is really great. That way you don't have to learn anything new.
The DTF printer, I think, even still works through XCS.
Right. Gina's asking, can you buy the class recordings? No, not this year, maybe in the future, but they'll just be available only to ticket holders. This is a big step for us to add this. Let me just tell you, lots of work and lots of technology to be able to record 25 different classes. And by the way, all of the classes at the conference will be taught at least twice, and some of them three times. To ensure that that everybody that wants to go can go. So you get to choose which one. You don't have to sign up for a class. You can just go. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunity to learn. It's going to be fantastic.
I got a quick question here from Mikey. Yeah. Does XCS have cut and print?
I don't believe so.
No.
Okay. Not that I know of.
But I would be surprised if it's not coming.
Yeah.
For sure. So that's a great question. All right. Patrick, I'll put you on the spot. Anything you want to kind of tell people before we go, whether it be about your class or just anything you want to leave as an encouragement to people who are just getting started, just learning?
Sure. Two quick things. One, I do offer a class, like Mark just said. It's a one-on-one laser training. You can book that through my website. It's a 1 hour long class. And, whether it's things that we covered here that you want more in depth, whether you don't know how to use your laser, I've even helped people go from not knowing how to turn their laser on to within that hour they were engraving. So I've got that. And then the other thing is just don't be scared of your laser. I can't tell you how many people I see in the groups. I've had this laser in, whether it's an F1 Ultra or it's an EMP, $10,000 fiber laser, whatever it is, or just a standard F1. I've had this in the box for a year and I haven't taken it out of the box. Yeah. Number one, your warranty is over at that point. So if you have any issues, you're not gonna be able to get it fixed.
Right.
But they're not difficult to use. They look a little scary. Don't stick your hand under it while you're running, or your face might look like Will. But they're not hard. They're really not hard. You break it down at its core, and it's not difficult. To master it is difficult. To use it is not.
Yeah. And you know what? The community, that's what we're here for. That's absolutely what we're here for. And Patrick is definitely a great valued member of the community. We're so glad to have him on board with us. And so if you guys have any questions at all, drop it in the chat. You can message Patrick. You can hire him for an hour to train you, which, man, a huge value. And by the way, there's no reason to struggle alone at all. So don't. Just jump in and don't. In fact, when I say this with all the love in my heart, when I get a message from somebody that says, I've been struggling with this for 2 weeks, don't. Right? Don't wait for that long. Reach out, and we'll do what we can to help you.
There's so many great Facebook groups. Catherine Ewers, I don't know if she's still on. She's got an amazing Facebook group with Primary Market. I mean, over 10,000 people in there. You post something in there, you're hard pressed not to get a response. Maybe the response is, I've never heard of this, and let's help figure this out.
Yep.
But you're going to get a response.
Absolutely.
And don't think you're the only person who's had an issue. I've thought that many times, and every time I've thought that, I've realized I'm not the only person with the issue.
Not at all. That's great. Any last words for Patrick, Will?
No, I'm excited. I got the chance to hang out with him for a short period of time in Nashville when we were out there, and it was a great experience. I'm honored to have him as part of the teaching team for Next Level. I think his knowledge and the way that he teaches, people can relate to, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to digest. So I think if you were interested in learning more about XCS, how to maximize the XCS program and maximize your time, it's going to be time well spent. And like you said, if you're interested in learning more now and you need to take the hour consult, yes, it costs money. We all understand that. But if it can get you from A to B quicker and rise that earning potential and get you making things, you'll make that money up way faster than what you spent it on. So invest in yourself. And big thank you to Patrick for coming on today. Big thank you for being part of our conference. We're really excited about it. So
thank you all for having me. Yep. Before we go, everybody, if you haven't got your tickets, it's been scrolling down there for the last hour. So nextlevellaserevents.com. Let us know if you have any questions. We'd love to help you. We'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thank you for joining us. And if you're watching late, drop some comments and let us know that you're there, and we'll do our best to help you. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Will and Patrick stick around. The rest of us, we'll see you in the groups. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for joining us.